Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome to another Sketchbook Saturday. This one I'm just doing with one pencil. It's an HB pencil just to show you that you can do it with just one pencil and just to give you a few tips about drawing. So I hope you enjoy it. Let's go to the studio. So in this sketch, I'm just going to use one pencil. Y'all, I cannot even talk today. My tongue keeps getting wrapped around my eye teeth and I can't see what I'm saying. That's what my grandma used to say when she would stutter. Anyway, I'm using just one pencil, an HB pencil for this drawing, just to show you can do it with one single pencil. It's no big deal. I wish I had went with a number 2 because the number 2 is just a touch softer and I could get a little bit better darks, but I got an HB and I didn't even notice it until after I'd already started the drawing. And since I said that I was going to use one pencil it is. I did not switch. So of course I always like to start with the eyes. When you look at the eyes, remember that they have highlights. And I've gotten the highlight sort of up toward the top of her lid, and there's another one like right on the outside of her iris. Make sure you get your pupil in there. And think about the eyeball and the shape that it is. It is not just a flat football shape. It is actually a round, not concave, but a rounded shape. So when you're shading it, keep that in mind that it is going to be darker toward the edges, lighter in the center. So there will be more highlights concentrated inside of that iris and the pupil. It'll be a little shadowy out toward the inner eye and outer eye. And of course, I've already gone over that no whites of your eye are not truly white. They have tones of gray, tones of blue, just depending on the person and their pigmentation. And what it might look like. So when you're doing a black and white, just make sure that you get a little bit of shadow on the white of the eye. Concentrate it on the edges toward the inner corner and the outer corner so that you get that rounded effect. And I know it's easy to just think about, oh, it's just a flat football shape stuck in your head, but it's not. Think about the anatomy of your skull and the anatomy of your eye and how it sits in your skull, how the skin folds around it, your eyelids, your under eyelids, how they'll protrude toward the center of the eye, so they'll have more highlight toward the center, and they'll also be more in shadow toward each corner. I'm talking about the lids, the eyelids, and even the lower lid. It'll be much darker toward the corners of those eyes and then lighter toward the center because that eyeball is pushing it out just ever so slightly. Depending, it depends on, how your eye is set in your skull. But for the most part, like right at the center of your eyelid will be the lightest part of the eyelid. On the corners, toward the corners, it'll get a little bit darker. So just keep that in mind. Think about the anatomy of your face and how everything fits together and the shapes of it as you're drawing. And I'm putting in some of her eyebrows here. Also, make sure that you notice how the hairs are growing, because everyone's eyebrows, they grow differently in different directions. Not everyone grows perfectly up, up toward your hairline and does a perfect arch. Some of those hairs grow down toward your cheeks. Some people have them where half of the hair grows up toward the hairline and then the top half grows down toward the cheeks, and it comes into like a little ridge right in the middle of the eyebrow. So keep that in mind. Make sure on your nose that you notice how the shadow is. Of course, under the tip of your nose, you're going to have a little bit more of a shadow because your nose is actually shadowing that upper lip. So keep that in mind when you're working on that area. The nostril is going to be, of course, the darkest part, so keep that in mind. Make sure you get that nice and dark. Now, she has her hand over one side of her face, so of course, where the hand is overlapping her nose, the side of her nose, it's casting a shadow on that side. And I'm just trying to walk you through things to think about when you're drawing. Just be noticing the shadows, how the shadows are working, how the different elements of your piece of your whatever you're drawing casts shadows and how the shapes sort of dictate where the shadows will be, where your highlights will be. So think about that as you're drawing. And once I get in my first layers down here, of course I got my little blending stump, and I am going to smudge everything. It needs a little smudging here and there. And you could do this with your finger, but of course I wouldn't suggest it because the oils in your hands could cause the drawing to deteriorate over time. So I wouldn't really suggest that, but you can do that. I used to do it when I was younger. I try not to do it now, but sometimes when I'm working with a pastel, I can't resist, and in my fingers go, and I just hope and pray that it doesn't make a big difference, but eventually it will cause it to break down. So when I'm doing something that I'm going to sell to someone or someone has commissioned to me, I never use my fingers to smudge anything. I try my best to keep that as a rule. So of course now we're moved down to the lips. Well, I've told you in previous Sketchbook Saturdays, your lips are also protruding from your face, and they have several different planes. They're not just flat, they have curvatures. And the top lip is usually darker than the bottom lip on most people for two reasons. Pigment wise, most people's top lip is, just a shade darker than their bottom lip. Also, the way that the top lip is oriented on the face, of course, the light is going to hit your bottom lip more. So that's even going to make your bottom lip look lighter than your top lip, and your top lip look a little bit darker than your bottom lip. So there's two factors, going in there: the pigmentation and the way that the light hits your lips, and the way that it bounces off of them based on how your lips are, attached to your face. We're attaching your lips to your face. How they're sitting in your face. Again, just think about the structure. Think about how light works, how light glides over objects, and how it highlights different shapes. So just think about that when you're doing the lips. And here, I'm not going to leave that bottom lip that light. I am just trying to get in some shadows. The bottom lip, of course, is casting a shadow over the chin. There's a little bit of highlight on the chin where the chin is protruding just past that lip. So I'm just thinking about all of those things as I am shading everything in. And I know it sounds like a lot to think about, but once you do it a lot, once you draw a lot and practice, it'll become second nature to you. You'll also, just understand the way that shading works across a human face, and that will help you in all of your drawings. But like I said, you have to put in the work. You can watch my videos all day long, but until you put pencil to paper, you're not going to do that true deep learning that you need. So I always encourage people to draw as much as you can. Keep one of those little sketchbooks in your pocketbook or in your back pocket if you're a man, or whatever you use to carry stuff around with, and a pencil, and just sketch everything you see. If you're on a train, if you're on a bus, if you're in the doctor's office, just whip that out and, draw the plant that's in the doctor's office. Draw the window on the train. Draw some people on the train if you feel froggy and you're confident in your drawing skills. Or even if you don't feel froggy, draw some people on the train, because it'll be a good experience for you. Or the bus, or whatever. Wherever you're at, whatever kind of environment you're in, there is always something that you can sketch. So keep your little sketchbook, keep it in your back pocket, keep a pencil, or in your purse, wherever you put it, so you'll always be ready to practice. Whenever you're waiting, that's the perfect time, because then you can make the time go by faster. You're not focused on all the waiting, and you are developing your skills. So hey, that is a win-win-win all the way around. So now she's got her fingers parted, so I'm going over here and making this area really dark, because you can't really make out her actual features because of the way that her hand is casting a shadow over that eye. So of course I'm going in a little darker. I am making it where you can slightly see her eyebrows. I'm making those slightly darker, and you can almost make out her eye. I made that area just a little bit darker, so that you know that that is her eye, even though you don't have to go into a lot of detail with it. Now I'm going to shade around her fingers. People are afraid to do hands, but hands are no different than anything else. So don't be afraid to do hands. Go ahead, try them out. You got one on the end of your arm at all times. You can draw hands. You can put your hand out there and then, use whatever dominant hand that you do to sketch that other hand. Your feet, they're always connected to you usually. So just put those feet up there and draw your own feet. It's really good practice. And I used to do that all the time when I would sit and watch TV, and I'd have my feet up on the recliner. I'd be looking at my toes going, ooh, I think I'm going to draw those little piggies. And, it's just a good way to practice. And it also helps get over your fear of doing hands and feet, because a lot of people, for whatever reason, are afraid of hands and feet. But I don't want you to be afraid, because it's really not that complicated. Really, just practice it. Trust me on this one. Now I'm getting to her ear, and I'm just kind of doing the concaved areas with some darker shadowing, making sure I'm getting those highlights, light enough. Going down the side of her face, down the side of her cheek with some shadowing. And then I am just kind of coming around and getting in some blending, a little bit of blending. I want her skin to look as smooth as possible, so I'm just blending it out. And of course, I've got my trusty kneaded eraser to pick up any areas that came off just a little bit too dark. And now I'm just going to kind of scratch in her hair. I'm not going to do a lot. I'm not even going to get frou-frou about her hair. I'm just going to do a lot of scratchy lines and call it hair. And ain't nobody can say it's not hair, because it's my drawing. And if I say it's hair, it's hair. Just like if it's your drawing and you say it's hair, then it's hair, dang it. So I'm just going to scritch that in, making sure that I do get the shadows in. But I'm just making lots of lines for that. Lots of little scritchy lines. One thing, you do want to make sure that the hair is going the way that it's actually laying or growing. You don't want to make it look all cattywonka by having it sticking out where it don't stick out, or going the opposite direction, or anything like that. So make sure you pay attention to that, because everybody has different textures of hair, different lengths of hair, and different colors, all that stuff. Hair is really unique to people, just like their hands and their feet and their eyes. So each person has a unique type of hair, so just pay attention to that. I'm going and making a good dark shadow under her chin and under her hand where her wrist is. Of course, it is casting a nice dark shadow there. Now I've popped back over to this hair. Again, I'm doing scritchy scratches. I'm not getting all, frou-frou with it. And I'm going to leave that, jump over here to her fingernails. And so I'm trying to look at where her fingernails are shadowed and where they have little highlights on them. Also, I want to pay attention to her knuckles. You have creases where your fingers bend. You have those little creases. You want to pay attention to those and get those little ridges darkened in correctly. And that lends a lot of realism to your hand. You also want to notice the shapes of your fingers, because if you notice where you have your knuckles, your finger tends to bulge at those spots where the little wrinkles are, where the little bend wrinkles are. You'll have a little bulge, and then it'll sort of dip in where the bone is more straight. Wherever you have a joint, it's gonna expand just slightly in that area. Just put it that way. So pay attention to that. Know that it's a cylinder. Remember, I don't know if you took art in high school or whatever, but we had to shade cones and cylinders and spheres and eggs and boxes and all the things. So think about how a cylinder would be shaded, where the light's coming from, where the shadow will be. And that's really the main things that you got to focus on, is what shape is that finger? Where are the ridges? Get those darkened in, and then the overall spherical shape of the finger, just shade it accordingly to how the light would go around that cylinder. And if you didn't, I might make a little, I think I might just make a little basic handout, and I'm going to put it in my Patreon, but it'll be for all members, free and for free and paid members, and it'll just give you some basics on shading different shapes. I forget that not everybody took art in school. I did. I got 2 degrees in art actually. So I mean, I've got degrees in art, I've got degrees in nursing. I just love school. Anyway, I might do that, and I will put it in my Patreon for my patrons. And if you just become a free member, you'll get that for free as well. You can download it and check it out. So I think that'd be a good idea. And that might help some people that have never had any art training, but they want to get started. Now I'm also, notice how, doggone it, my tongue just keeps getting wrapped around my eye teeth. Notice how her knuckles and how the light plays across her knuckles, where it's lighter, where it's darker. Look at your own knuckles and see how they, how the shadows play across them. Of course, your knuckles might be different from hers. I got some little chubby hands, so my knuckles aren't quite as concave as hers, or the parts in between the knuckles aren't quite as concave, but my actual knuckles, they're a little padded too. So it just depends on how thick or thin you are. But look at them anyway, because it'll give you a good idea of where to put the shadows and where to put the highlights. So I'm going around her thumb over here and down the side of her hand with a shadow. That side of her hand and face is in more shadow, as you can see, because it's a lot darker. And as you move to the right side of her face, the one that's showing, has a lot more light just shining on it. So you have to think about the direction of where your light is coming from and shade accordingly. I think I will do a little beginner's guide I know not everybody in my Patreon cares about drawing, but it's a good foundational thing to learn. So yeah, that's what I'm going to do. I just came up with that idea. I think it'll be good. As soon as I finish this voiceover and get this uploaded, I'm going to get right on that. That is going to be my next pet project. And if you are a patron, thank you so much for supporting me. Without you, I could not do this. Y'all make my day every day, and thank you so much. So now I am also the bones of her hand, her metatarsals. That is the palm, it's not the palm bones, but the bones that right there make up from the knuckles down to the wrist. You see how some of those are sticking out. So of course you want those to be highlighted, and the areas that sink in between a little bit dark. And now I am just doing my scratchy hair, really getting some dark tones in there. Like I said, this side over here, it has less light hitting it, so it's much darker than the right side. And I'm not even getting my panties in a wad about it. I'm just scratching all over the place. I don't even care. I am making sure that I'm going up and down though. I don't want to go sideways, because of course her hair doesn't grow sideways. And some of that is her hair and some is the background, but I'm just sort of blending them together with the same tone, just so that she looks like she's sort of melting into the background a little bit. And I'm not going to go all the way to the ends of the paper. It's my it's my drawing. I'm going to do it like I want to. So if I don't feel like filling up all the paper, I'm not going to. Now I'm doing where her hair is coming down her forehead and it's sort of tucked behind her ear. Again, scratch hair. I'm not paying a lot of attention to it. On the other side, I'm doing the same thing. Her hair is coming down her forehead and behind her fingers and then down the side of her face, which you can't see because of course it is so dark over here. Yeah, I'm liking it. Let's put a little bit more hair. See, she's got a part that's sort of in the middle, sort of a middle part. So we're going to shade along the edges of that so that you can actually see that there is a part there. And I'm just going to pull some of this hair down into the shadows and then pull some of the shadow up into the hair. Yeah, and then I am going to just darken that up in the back a little bit. And if you want to, you can take your stump, your blending stump, and sort of blend that background out if you'd like. Totally up to you. Just add a little bit of shadow here, right on this side, and let's darken this up behind her. Make this background darker so that her hair does stand out from it, so that you can sort of separate her from the background a little on this side. There you go. I think it's finished. Thank you for watching. Let me see. Let's pull this out. Let me sign it. Once I get it signed and dated, then, oh, I put 5/4, but I think it's really 6/4. And there, I mean 5/4. Yeah, it is 5. No, it's 6/4. Shoot, I don't know what month it is anymore. But anyway, there we go. We are all finished. Thank you for watching.